Well, we've got revved up with boats. We hear about where we're heading in the economy, so now we need to keep it all stored. So I just want to bring our next presenter up. These are the gentlemen that are heading up our largest battery energy storage in Canada. And as we've heard, that's going into the township of Edwardsburg Cardinal. Please welcome Ben Greenhouse and Will Patterson to the podium.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. My name is Ben Greenhouse. I'm the CEO of Potentia. I'm actually in a band personally. I've never had an opening act that important, so appreciate that. I was also reflecting, Cam, I've never met someone who has a list of places they've been shipwrecked. And I think that might be a nice life goal to aspire to as a fellow boater. So thanks for that. Look, it's very exciting to be here. We were thrilled as we developed the Skyview project to have the support of Edwardsburg Cardinal. We're thrilled to be here. We are thrilled. I'll talk a bit about who we are. We're an Ontario company, about 100 employees across Canada, but the majority here in Ontario. Personally, I've developed a lot of energy projects, renewable energy projects here in Ontario, but haven't done so for about 10 years. And it's really thrilling to be back here doing things I can show my family that I'm a part of to move this province forward, and to see the exciting plans Minister Lecce and his team have is just thrilling. It's a really great time to be an Ontarian, and especially in Eastern Ontario. So with that, let me tell you a bit about Potentia. The plan here is I'll tell you a bit about Potentia. Will, who's the lead of the project, will talk a bit more about the project and the details. We hope to leave a lot of time for questions because, as exciting as it seems, frankly, battery projects can be a bit boring. They just sit there. If everything's going right, you have no idea they're really there except as you drive by. But we know that there's more there, and there's a lot of questions because it is new. So hoping we can get questions from you. I'm sure you have them. If we don't have answers, at least we'll know what to be prepared for next time. But I think we will have answers. All right, there we go. So, sorry, I skipped through that. As I mentioned, we're 100% owned, 100% Canadian owned. There are a few proponents in the renewable energy sector that are that, but the majority are international conglomerates. I used to work for one, a company I'm very proud to have worked for, NextEra Energy, largest renewable owner and operator in the world. They're an American company. You have EDF, then Energy de France, but to have pure play Canadian companies is quite rare. There's probably 2 or 3 of us in the industry right now. We're owned by Power Corporation of Canada, who you may know. Actually, when I was hired, I didn't know who they were, but I quickly realized. Traded on the TSX 100. I think they're in the top 10. They own brands. They own or control brands, like Great-West Life, Mackenzie Financial, Putnam Investments. About 15 years ago, they got into the renewables sector in the business of solar rooftops. So we've got solar facilities on over 750 schools, Home Depots. We don't get into residential, and we're generating over 150 megawatts of power, predominantly in Ontario. We have 1 rooftop in Alberta on a medical marijuana facility, and true to form, they've stopped paying the bill, so I don't know when we'll take that off. But we like the Ontario school boards and the ISO. Power Corp, who doesn't traditionally, they're known as an investment and financial technology company. They don't traditionally get into this, but they got into the sector because they saw the promise. After sort of whetting their appetite with the rooftop solar program, they decided to focus on, they wanted to invest more capital in utility scale. And about 8 years ago, we started working in utility scale. We've been very successful. We've built more utility scale renewables in Canada than anyone else over the last 6 years. We've won about 40% of the government procurements for renewables across Canada. I keep trying to go into the US with the team, but we keep winning in Canada and keep being busy up here. We've built 6 large wind farms across Alberta, 1 large wind farm in, actually I have a map, I'm jumping ahead. One large wind farm in Saskatchewan. We've got operating facilities, smaller community-focused facilities across Eastern Canada. We quite memorably built a large solar project in the Dominican Republic that unfortunately we ended up selling because we weren't pursuing the Caribbean. But just across the country, we've expanded into the US. We have operating assets in Montana. We're just finishing construction of our first battery storage project in Texas. It's a much smaller project, 10 megawatts times 5 hours. There's another one to follow there. And we're nearing completion of a large solar and storage project with 150 megawatts of storage in California. I mentioned the experience we've had growing in Canada over the past 5 years. We have a team that has done this here in Canada, and I'm very proud of our team. We talk in utility, I was debating whether to say this because there may be people here who are offended, but we talk in the utility industry about Dougs, and they're dumb old utility guys, right? And I was thrilled to hear Minister Lecce talking about increasing diversity in the workforce. I'm thrilled with our team. We're a young team. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I may be one of the oldest in our company of about 100 people. We've got tons of representation, a diverse team from the senior level on down. Our 4 values, these values are corporate values can tend to be somewhat boilerplate. One of our values is excellence. Who wouldn't have a corporate value of excellence? But of course, we believe in that. Excellence, passion. We believe we should have fun. And our industry is a great industry to attract young people to. We've got excellence, passion, integrity, and agility. And our senior team has worked across Canada. We've got a stat here in Ontario. One of our senior management has either built, operated, or developed 30% of the renewable facilities in Ontario. Across Canada, that's 10%. We've been here a while. We know what we're doing. And yeah, we're just, like I said, thrilled to be here. Speaking of opportunities, this is the graph I think Minister Lecce was alluding to. On the bottom is the supply of power in Ontario with the dotted line representing the demand. And actually, when I saw this is from the ISO, I was a little surprised at how the lack of steepness on the demand curve. What we're seeing in different markets across Canada and the US is a very steep growth as data centers come in. I was telling Troy earlier this morning, we're active in Alberta. Alberta has 4,000 megawatts of data centers in their queue to connect. Alberta's entire system is 13,000 megawatts. So they have more than just a bit less than a third of their system trying to come in, and there's no way to capture that growth. Constellation down in the eastern seaboard of the US has 2 nuclear reactors worth of data centers trying to connect. And this is an industry that over the past 2 decades has never seen growth like that. Because of efficiency in industry, actual demand for power hasn't really grown over the past 20 years. So you have a whole industry of Dougs who have not had to live an expansion of this scale. And so what an opportunity for the next generation of workers in this sector. So speaking of the next generation, I'm going to ask Will to come up and tell you a bit more about the Skyview project. Like I said, I hope I haven't spoken too long, Will. We're hoping to have a robust question and answer period because I know this is an interesting and probably new technology for most people here.
Hey everyone, it's great to speak to you today, and I'm really excited to talk to you about the Skyview BESS project that we've been working on really over the last almost year or 2 now in this township, working with landowners, starting conversations with adjacent landowners, really starting to engage the community a little bit more. We've been working, the project was awarded a contract in the spring or so of last year. And since then, we've been working on really laying the foundation of this project. So who is going to be supplying the materials? What is our schedule? When are we going into construction? And I'm pleased today to be able to start speaking about things a little bit more. So, we are anticipating to start construction in early 2026. We still need to go through all of the approval processes to do that, and that'll happen in 2025. So that'll happen very shortly next year. This year, we have been doing a lot of studies to start laying that foundation. So we've been doing all of our environmental surveys. We had archaeologists and First Nations on site actually earlier this week. They will be on site next week as well. So far, there's been no fines, but we're doing all of the work that's necessary to really make sure that this area is studied before we start construction, so we can go through the approvals process and make sure that we provide the township, the ministry, all the information that they need to approve our project to move forward. It's been a really fun project to work on. 411 megawatts is a lot of power. It's kind of hard to contextualize. I personally don't know what a megawatt looks like. It's it's invisible. But the minister mentioned 400,000 homes. That's a really easy number to kind of reference. So this project when it operates, is about 400,000 homes instantly. As soon as the grid operator needs power, this project is effectively an insurance policy for the grid. And that's why the ministry has rolled out these projects all across Ontario. There is already a 250 megawatt project, which is already a large project, operating in Southern Ontario called Oneida. And this one will be larger than that now. This is a 411 megawatt project, and it will be Ontario's largest project. It's new to this township. It is not necessarily new to North America, and these projects have been rolling out even globally. And one of the things that have given us a lot more confidence in moving forward with this project is as global construction and commissioning and operations of these projects are increasing, the rates of failures and thermal runaway events in these projects is also decreasing. So there has been significantly more regulation that is happening on these projects now as a result to make sure that fire safety is of paramount importance. And given this kind of the flagship nature of this project, we've found, honestly, that we've had a lot of pull with different suppliers to make sure that we get the best materials and the best minds working on this project, which is really nice to see. This is not a 10 megawatt project that's going to be, that's not a significant project, but it's not a small project that we're working on. This is our largest project, and we're giving it the attention that it deserves with an experienced group from across Canada. One thing I just want to speak to as well, just a little bit on the timing. Construction, we anticipate will be about a year. There'll be a lot of testing and making sure that things operate well, and we hope to be in operations in early to mid 2027. And as I'm kind of speaking to this group, I know a lot of economic minds are here, especially local economic minds. And if you feel like there's any opportunity that you feel like could be a part of this project, there will be a lot of, there will be grading, there will be foundation work, there'll be steel, there'll be concrete, there'll be a lot of things to do on this project. And if you feel like you or any of your kind of constituents could benefit from that, please come talk to us afterwards. We've already had some good conversations on logistics. I was one of the first ones. So this is going to be a really nice asset and really a flagship for the local area and really in Ontario. Actually, maybe just to speak to the image that we have up here to provide some color. I'm sure you can't read some of these things on here, but the project is right now, it's set back about 900 meters from the road. So it's over 600 meters from a residence. So it's really, we took a lot of energy to site this project. Ontario has one of the strictest noise requirements in all of North America. And while batteries don't produce noise when they're operating, they do produce heat. And so there are HVAC systems operating that do produce noise. And that's really what we have to mitigate against. So we're going to have a noise wall, and we're going to have additional baffle units that are there to mitigate noise coming from our HVAC system. And the distance really allows us a lot of buffer to do that. There'll be a large substation that is going to be tapping the transmission lines that traverse this county. And that's really why this project can be positioned here. There are large setbacks to residences, so it's going to impact a minimal amount of people, just in terms of construction impacts. And personally, I don't love being beside a construction site. No one really does if you're living there, and that's really the reason we put this here. In construction, there'll be about 200 people a day coming to site, and that'll be again over about a year. Once it's operating, as Ben said, is a little bit boring. There's not that many people coming to site. We'll have about 4 people at least employed full-time on just general maintenance of things day to day. There'll be a lot more other people employed in the background. The site is monitored 24/7, so there's just a lot going on that's not necessarily on site. And we're looking at 2 options right now. We're looking at 2 options on the transmission system and trying to figure out what works best for the ISO. Wanted to provide a little bit more color as to what these systems look like. A box on a satellite image looks great, but this is really what we're talking about. These are shipping containers. So batteries come in a shipping container. It's a modified shipping container. And they are placed in there during the kind of manufacturing process. And so they come fully shipped. They come fully kind of containerized, and they come from the port onto a truck and then onto our site. And really the intent is, because each of these containers weighs 40 plus tons, that they are placed directly onto the foundations that are already built. So there's not a lot of mishandling or anything like that. We take the containers and then they go on the site. You can see the HVAC unit that I was talking about is on the end. Those containers connect to different electrical equipment that then connects to our substation that then brings us power onto the grid. I'm gonna just open up the container. Really, as I said, open up the doors here, literally, and you can see what is inside. So these we're talking about batteries, but to provide a little bit more context, each battery is actually quite small. It's kind of about this size. And there's about 100 of them in each of those modules. So those modules that you see there are those black containers. And in each of there's almost 50 in each container. So there's about 5,000 battery cells in each container. And again, those are all hermetically sealed containers, which means they're airtight. They're in a leak-proof container already. And so that's why some of the environmental features are already considered in design. Really, the design looks to be a passive design that doesn't require external inputs, either through environmental mitigations or through fire. I'm happy to speak to that if there's additional questions later. There are many different sensors through this. Actually, each cell has a number of different sensors testing voltage, temperature, state of charge across each cell, and there's 5,000 cells. There's over 1.9 million cells on this site. So there is a large amount of data that we are analyzing all of the time through our operation maintenance system. We've been really lucky to be working with the Township of Edward Cardinal. Right now, as I said there, we haven't received any approvals and we haven't asked for any approvals. The municipal support resolution really allows a project like this to be conceptualized. Before we bid a project, we don't have the ability to fully understand all the details, to fully do environmental surveys and come up with all the questions that we know we need to answer. And that's what this last year has really kind of started to give us. Some of the benefits that we are able to provide the community, apart from the 200 plus local construction jobs that are going to be happening, a few jobs through operations, is really improving the resiliency of the electrical grid. That has been what we've been talking about. We've been talking about getting amped up and supporting electrical grids. Increasingly, economic activity is driven where there is electrical power. You're seeing opportunities turned away where there's just not electrical capacity. And that's not something that we can really accept. And so by improving local resilient electricity, we'll have less brownouts and less opportunities or more opportunities for economic activity here in the future. More directly, locally, there are 2 main benefits, being property tax in the long term and the community benefit fund. Property tax will result in millions of dollars over the project's life, directly benefiting the township. I can't tell you how many township meetings and council meetings I've sat in across Ontario where there's been intense debate about budgets and about the need for a fire truck in 2 or 3 years and trying to figure out the the resources that can support that. As investors and as business owners, we are coming here and saying, this is an opportunity in the energy market that will provide millions of dollars that can buy fire trucks or can support your roads in the long term. On the more fun side, there's a community benefit fund. So what this project has committed to is a $300,000 per year community benefit fund on top of our property taxes. So every year we will have a community benefit fund with the Township of Edwardsboro Cardinals that they can use to support local initiatives like the Spencerville Fair. That's one that happened last year. It was the 169th fair last year. Apparently it's the 170th this year. And we were proud to support that fair last year. And that's just an example of things that we can support going forward. I really do want to leave questions. I'm getting some time. That's including, so we have 5 minutes, it looks like, for questions, but maybe we'll leave it at that. And we'd love to answer any questions. And again, if we don't have time for that, please find us afterwards and we can continue the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben and Will. And we have any questions? I know there's probably one or two out there on that. So he's got one in the far corner, one right here. Sorry, where else? Okay, and Liz. So we'll go to Doreen first, then Liz. Sorry, Doreen over here, then Liz.
Thank you. I'm Doreen O'Sullivan, councillor in North Grenville. Thank you very much for the interesting presentation. I learned a lot that I didn't know. I do have questions about the end of life of these battery units. I think your attention to the setbacks and the monitoring and the safety concerns and the storage of the units, very commendable. But what about at the end of life? I continue to be worried about how do we get rid of batteries when they're no longer being used?
Great question. Thank you. This is something our landowner also was very concerned about and asked us many times. They're a prominent landowner in Edwardsboro Cardinal, and they want to keep their great legacy that it is. And one thing that we have with our landowners is we post multiple securities to the landowner directly. It's one avenue that we go through. So actually within, not to give too much of our contract away, but within literally days of us starting construction, we post a large security deposit to the landowner to make sure that all of our obligations under the lease are maintained. And it's a broad application. It's all of our obligations under the lease. And then 20 years later, while we are still under the ISO contract, we post another security to our landowner for decommissioning. This is a decommissioning security that's done by we are going to ask a third party to come in and take an assessment of the cost to decommission the facility. And then we post a bond through a letter of credit or a similar form to the landowner for that cost. And that's done in about year 20, which is maybe 10 years before we actually anticipate the full life of the project. Apart from that, the recycling of the project, there's about 95% of a battery can be recycled, and companies in Ontario are doing this already. And that's not even considering all of the battery waste that will likely come through electric vehicles. And that's why these companies are really getting set up are for electric vehicles. So our batteries kind of piggyback off of that. Yeah, Ontario also has really strict requirements for batteries. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Oh, sorry, we ought to spread it around. Got to spread the wealth over here.
Thank you very much. Chris Ward, Councillor Edwardsboro Cardinal. Good seeing you guys again today. And I actually feel like you wanted me to ask this question, so I think we're on the same page here. But so, in our conversations, one of the components that really helped me to justify supporting our program, if you will, was how you explain the cascade of the safety contingencies that are inherent in the BESS system, in the facility itself. And I guess, could you remind me, but more importantly, could you inform the leaders in this room about that? Because I think it's really important, because it's something that we keep getting, conversations about, and I think that you guys have the opportunity now to explain it to a bunch of people in this room, and I think we should give you that opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So if you Google battery fire, you will see images of batteries catching on fire. And so people are asking questions about that, which is 100% reasonable. There are many different aspects to battery fires, and there are also many different types of batteries. So most batteries that were deployed before 2022, maybe even later, were called NMC batteries. So nickel, manganese, cobalt batteries. They contain cobalt, which is a rare mineral that's usually found in conflict zones, and they have lower temperatures where they actually will go into thermal runaway. Thermal runaway is possible for all batteries, but it's just there's just different levels of risk. And in NMC batteries, that risk is much greater due to the lower thermal runaway level. And also when they do go into thermal runaway, they create oxygen. And they are creating oxygen as they're heating up, which is not a good combination, as you know.
To be clear, we're not NMC.
Yes, that's the next part is, so these batteries aren't NMC batteries. It's the technology. It's lithium iron phosphate batteries. So they don't produce oxygen when they actually go into thermal runaway. It's still possible for them to go into thermal runaway. And so that's why we have to do all of these tests. So the tests really start in the design of the system. And they start at the cell level, then they go to the module level, and then they go to the whole rack level in the components. And you have to prove that once you get to that rack level, effectively you have to demonstrate that even if you force a thermal runaway to happen, even if you force in that module, if you force multiple cells to go into thermal runaway, if you increase them to like 300 degrees Celsius, that event is not going to spread to other cells, to outside of the unit. And I can tell you that the test reports that we have for the cells that we're using, and we already have specified them, when you test the rack in these cells and when you test the single module, 3 of these cells are effectively lit on fire. They are forced to light. They're increased that temperature. And only 2 additional cells within the 100 that are in this module actually go into thermal runaway. So the event is contained within an actual module, within one of those little black boxes that you see. It's all contained within that. And then on top of that, it's in a container that has tons of different sensors, including gas and heat sensors, that has automatic disconnection from the grid and disconnection from the actual local source. I mean, I could honestly talk about this for quite a while, but we even assess the worst case scenario, like if everything were to go into thermal runaway, it's on fire, what happens? What happens if the wind is blowing at 20 miles per hour? That really, we use that in our design to determine safe distances. And so that is a key aspect of how, when we go through the site plan approval process and are working with the fire chief to determine what a safe distance is, these are all through standard regulations at this point. That's why you're seeing battery fires decrease while you're seeing this exponential growth in batteries.
Thank you. We'll have one more. Sorry, Rob. Liz was in first. And then we've got hungry people. You're between them and food.
Tough spot.
Hi, my name is Linda Carr, and I am hungry for answers. Was this,
Linda,
sorry?
Oh,
Can I talk?
Linda. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. 1, 2, 3 farmland. Was this situated on any of that farmland? 1, 2, or 3?
When we cited the project, it wasn't
Yes.
included on anything. It was included on class 4 lands.
Okay, you're okay.
And now it's still on class 4 lands, but as I said, we're going through detailed design right now. Portion of the substation is likely going to extend onto class, I don't know the class of the land. I think it's class 3 lands. But the vast majority of the project is north of that.
How many more batteries are you going to build?
This is our intent. We don't have a plan to expand it off this site right now. If there was interconnection capacity and our landowner was willing, we would love to.
Thank you. Big round of applause for Ben and Will. Just so you make sure you enjoy some of our local flavors. Thank you. Congratulations on your advancements to date, and we look forward to hearing more in the future.
Thank you.